Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 3:07 here in Middle Tennessee, and in the nation's capital, it is 4:07. And as we speak right now, Donald J. Trump is in court, and they're going to officially be arraigned on 4 additional charges. He enters the courtroom. This is unbelievable. With 74 counts leveled against him, he will emerge from the court with 78 charges leveled against him. These are the charges related to January 6th. Now, we understand, here's how the afternoon is going to go. We understand that when he emerges from the courthouse, he'll get into the motorcade. He'll go back out to Reagan National, which is maybe taking the shortest route, and with a police escort, it's maybe 10 minutes away. He will go over to Reagan National, and before he gets on Trump Force One, he will have something to say to reporters, and reporters will be gathered at the base of his aircraft. So that is the way things are going right now. Now, already, while we're waiting on this to happen, we have heard from one of the president's attorneys who met with reporters outside the courthouse to talk about how, this is all a political indictment. It is not anything other than an attempt to interrupt the campaign of Donald Trump to become the next president of the United States. Here is, and this is long, this goes about, but it's good. You got to listen to this. This is Alina Haba speaking on behalf of Donald Trump outside the courthouse a few moments ago.
On March 17th, Hunter accidentally admits that it was his laptop from hell. The next day, DA Alvin Bragg indicts President Trump. June 8th, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. The next day, the Mar-a-Lago raid and the Mar-a-Lago indictment. Last week, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it had blanket immunity. The following day, a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. July 31st, Devin Archer goes to testify in front of the House. That was only after they failed to put him in jail prior to the fact. What happens the next day? The January 6th indictment that we're here for today. This is not a coincidence. This is election interference at its finest against the leading candidate right now for president, for either party. President Trump is under siege in a way that we have never seen before. President Trump and his legal team and everyone on his team will continue to fight, not for him, but for the American people. I'll take some questions.
Now, first of all, pretty shocking, but she's going to actually then take questions. But, I mean, what she laid out there is a tit-for-tat, a ping-pong game that's going on in official Washington. Every time something bad would happen to Hunter Biden, boom, it'd be followed by something bad that they were lobbing at Donald Trump. And her point, I think, is a pretty good one. That this is really about trying to interrupt the political campaign of a man who is the leading candidate on the Republican side of the equation. Quite frankly, his poll numbers look a little better than the numbers that look for Joe Biden, although, according to the most recent polls, if you look nationwide, they are in a deadlocked race if they were to go up against one another for the next presidential election. Now, here are some of the questions, good responses. Again, Alina Haba speaking on behalf of former President Trump outside the courthouse where he's being arraigned.
Thank you. I know the president has called this a witch hunt. You just laid out several examples of that. Any other thoughts that the president has communicated to you in terms of why this is going on and then why he calls it a witch hunt?
I think a witch hunt is really the way that anybody should describe this, because it's not something we've seen in our time. This is not even political. This is beyond that. A witch hunt is when you relentlessly attack your opponent, when you relentlessly attack the thing that you are most afraid of. People are afraid of somebody that cannot be bought by Washington. People are afraid of somebody who is independently wealthy and who has given up his good life to fight for this country. And that frightens a lot of politicians who are career politicians, unfortunately, because he'll get back there, and I know he'll be fighting for every one of us so that this doesn't happen to us.
You see, this case is about free speech, but the special counsel says Trump could have disagreed with the results and talked about it. No crime there. The difference is what he did to try and switch the votes.
So what is it that he did to try and switch the votes that you refer to? By bringing cases, by using the law in an appropriate manner, unlike what we're sitting here today seeing. This is not appropriate. What President Trump did is he said, go patriotically and peacefully and protest. That is an American right. That is why we are America and we are not a third world country. Although I will say that today, I don't feel very much like we are in America. Yes.
This case should go forward before or after the 2024 presidential election?
I think that every court needs to look at this as a whole, right? It's not about the January 6th case. It's about the fact that in the matter of a couple months, we have seen them try and tie up, and me as an attorney, I've never seen this, tie up one individual who's running a campaign, running for office for president, so that he is in court, in depositions, and distracted, so that he won't properly run for 2024. And frankly, it's not going to work.
Is the legal team going to argue that the election was stolen?
I don't think that that's the argument that needs to be made. I think that anybody that believes that is misreading this. The truth is, as an American, there were questions that he had regarding the election integrity. We've seen documents come out, we've seen documentaries come out showing that there were issues with the election. And frankly, by bringing this, I don't think Jack Smith really thought it through. There only has to be proof that, number one, President Trump believed that this election was not completely honest. And number two, Jack Smith has opened himself up to a can of worms that we can now look at and really examine.
If you believe that he's innocent and that this is all a setup, why not bring it to trial as soon as possible before the election so that you can clear his name?
Yeah, I would love to do that, but there's something called discovery. And when somebody wants to say that the 2020 election was perfect and that President Trump has no right to object to it, we've got to go show him all the facts. And there's a lot of facts to show. So everybody has their time. And to say that Donald Trump should then be rushed and not be given the same fair proceeding that anybody else is just, frankly, un-American. It's not fair. It's not the way our system works.
A lot of the lawyers who helped him try to overturn the election are unnamed co-conspirators in the indictment. Jenna Ellis isn't. Why do you think that is?
I'm not going to speak to co-conspirators or anybody else. I represent President Trump.
Let's go one more.
Alina, there are a number of, there's testimony and there's a number of aides that have said that the president was made aware that he lost the election and yet continued to argue that it was stolen from him. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, I think that everybody was made aware that he lost the election, but that doesn't mean that that was the only advice he was given. As anybody understands what happens in the Oval Office, there are a numerous amount of advisors and politicians and lawyers, not just one or two, that are giving you advice and telling you what they believe is true. So he may not agree with Mike Pence. He may not agree with one of his lawyers, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other people advising him exactly the opposite. And the president has a right, as every one of us do, to listen to several opinions and make their decision.
I remember hearing Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams argue their elections were not right.
Absolutely.
I mean, and the weaponization of the DOJ didn't happen then.
No, of course not. But if your last name's Trump, it's very different. So Hillary Clinton could have a problem when she lost the election, and we could have a complete liberal meltdown, as we all saw. But when we have dignified disagreements, we take them to court. We say do things patriotically and peacefully. He's to blame for things that he did not himself do. And that's what we're seeing. Frankly, folks, this is not about that. This is about politics. This is about 2024. Period. The end. Thank you.
And there you have it, about 6 minutes, and a compelling 6 minutes of sound interview from the courthouse where President Trump is now being arraigned on charges with regard to January 6th. I think she makes a very good point here, and that this is about what did the president believe, and how do you get in the mind of Donald Trump? How do you know what he believed? Yes, he probably did hear from some people that, you did not lose, that this was not a loss caused by fraud. And people told him that. And I think there are other people who say, we got some real concerns here and something doesn't seem right. And I'm sure there are people who told him just the opposite. How do you know which one he glommed onto? Which one do you think he glommed onto? Whatever, it's impossible to prove what's in the mind of an individual. And no matter what he said, he can always write it off as saying, well, yes, I was asking questions to elicit opinions so that I could make a decision. It doesn't mean that, that just because somebody walked in there and said it was a fair election, that he was required to agree with that assessment after hearing the opinion of others. So this is weak. This is really weak. Now, as we speak right now, Donald Trump is in the process of getting arraigned. It will not be before the regular judge who will handle this case, but before a magistrate. He came in early, apparently had his fingerprints taken. We were told there will be no mug shot, and then he moved to the courtroom for the official arraignment. And again, if you've just joined us, when the former president gets to the Reagan National Airport, which is just a few minutes away, he is expected to talk to reporters, and we're going to do what we can to try to bring that to you live when it occurs. I have a lot more stuff that I want to talk to you about, but given the fact that we don't know exactly how this is going to come down, I'm going to go ahead and take a break just a hair early here. When we come back, Alan Dershowitz says this case against Trump regarding January 6th, paper thin, not much to it. And I agree 1,000% with his assessment of this. I'll play those remarks for you right now. Let's call it 19 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Former President Trump has arrived to his arraignment hearing and is now inside the courtroom for that third indictment. And people are calling on Texas Governor Greg Abbott to reconsider the use of buoys in the Rio Grande after 2 bodies were found. That and more. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hard to believe that there are 74 counts pending against the former president. And when he emerges today from this courtroom, there will be 78. Is this a political prosecution? Yes, it seems very clearly that it is. Alan Dershowitz is a great legal mind, and he was on Hannity last night, and I heard what he had to say, and I said, you know what, that's dead on. I 1,000% agree with what Alan Dershowitz, who's a venerated law professor, has to say about this. Here is Alan Dershowitz about how the president, he may lose this trial in the first round, but he thinks ultimately the former president will win on appeal. It's awful hard to win a case like this in the District of Columbia, he says.
In the indictment, they acknowledge that there are these freedoms, but then they claim that this is the key point, that Donald Trump actually believed that he lost the election, that everything he did was fraudulent, that he conspired with unnamed lawyers mostly to affect the election. Now, you're allowed to challenge elections. Indeed, the best way to challenge elections is to come up with a slate of alternate electors. That's what a court said in Hawaii in 1960. That's been the case throughout our history. So the government has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that subjectively Donald Trump actually believed that he lost the election and acted contrary to that belief. Now, I read the indictment very carefully. There is no smoking gun.
Listen to that. That's important. He's read the thing, and he said he doesn't think there's much there either.
And acted contrary to that belief. Now, I read the indictment very carefully. There is no smoking gun. There is no one who is credibly prepared to testify that Donald Trump said to him, I know personally I lost the election. There's a lot of evidence that people told him he lost the election, but you know Donald Trump, and you know that he's going to make up his own mind. And they're going to have a very hard time proving that. Now, it's the District of Columbia. 90-some-odd% of the jury pool will have voted against him. So they may actually get a conviction from a D.C. jury. But will it survive appellate review and review to the Supreme Court? I do not think so.
I think he may lose in the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, but I think he will probably win in the United States Supreme Court if they grant review, and they should grant review. When you have the president of the United States' people going after his opponent in a political election, it has to be beyond reproach. It has to be the strongest case in history. This doesn't meet that standard.
Well, I agree 1,000%. This is weak. This is thin gruel, which I think is sort of like watery oatmeal. I think that's what that means. But it's not much. And you have to prove, what was Donald Trump's mindset, and how do you do that? How do you say he definitely knew that he had lost the election, but he didn't care, he was still trying to win it through hook or crook? I mean, how do you prove that was his mindset? And if you can't prove that, well, I'll tell you how you prove it. You try the case in the District of Columbia. I mean, the grand jury should never have issued these indictments, but in the District of Columbia, Republicans make up only about 28% of the population. 56% are Democrats, and 16% say that they don't lean one way or the other, but they probably do. So, I mean, it is, 60 to 30, about 2 to 1, the number of Democrats. And so, and the number of Democrats who will be involved in a jury pool, probably. I mean, well, yeah, you look at the last election. Barack Obama got 92% of the vote in the District of Columbia, something like that, 92%. Joe Biden got something like 90%. So, it's a very blue area. There's a little doubt about that. So, what happens? Well, maybe what you do is you say, okay, we're going to, because is an election at play here, and because these are extraordinary situations, why don't we appeal to go straight to the Supremes? Straight to the Supreme Court. I think ultimately he probably does win in the Supreme Court, but I'm not sure he wins in the Court of Appeals, and I'm not sure he wins the way these courtrooms are likely to be stacked as far as the jury pool. Could ask for a change of venue. Years ago, when I was a young reporter in Amarillo, I actually had to testify when somebody said they wanted to change a venue, and I was called in as a reporter who covered the story, and they wanted to know how much coverage I had and do I believe that the defendant could get a fair trial. I said, well, I think they can, and that was, they did not grant the change of venue in that particular case. And I can't recall a D.C. Court of Appeals or federal court request for a change of venue out of D.C. that has ever been honored. I can't think of one. Maybe there is one, but I can't remember it. So I don't think that is likely to happen. All right, so where are we right now? It is 3:29 Middle Tennessee time, 4:29 in the nation's capital. The former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump Jr., is now there in the courthouse awaiting the ending of this hearing where he is being arraigned on 4 charges with regard to January 6th. And again, I told you, he'll go through the 3rd Street Tunnel, he'll zip across the Potomac River, he'll go past the Pentagon, he'll be right at Reagan National. If you've ever made that drive, you know it's not a very far drive. In fact, the reason there is a Reagan National is because Congress people like to get away quick on a Thursday. That's the only reason that airport still exists, because it really should not continue to exist at this time with other airports in the air, but they keep it around because it's handy. So he'll be there very quickly, and then we're told reporters will gather at the bottom of the steps of Trump Force One, and that he will say things, have things to say to the media on the heels of having been indicted yet again. So we'll call that right now 3:30. We're watching it. We'll bring you those comments we're doing everything we can to bring those to you live. So don't go anywhere. Donald Trump will have his say in just a short while. Right now, 31 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.331, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. Scattered showers, but the worst of the rain and storms has subsided for today. More expected tomorrow. Traffic and weather coming up in about 5 minutes. Former President Trump has arrived to his arraignment hearing inside the Barrett-Pettyman Federal Courthouse in Washington for his latest court showdown with special counsel Jack Smith. And Trump has now pled not guilty to all of those charges. Alex Stone.
The president has been in the courtroom for a few moments, seated at the defense table, his hands clasped. He appears attentive. He's been looking around the room, accompanied by a big group of plainclothes Secret Service agents and attorneys wearing the former president navy blue suit and a red tie.
Law enforcement have said they are seeing less angry protesters than they have for the previous 2 indictments. We are now waiting for the former president to speak to media and field questions after the hearing. We'll carry that live right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Now to the other side of the world, the United States planning to charter a plane to move some American embassy staff and their families out of Niger, where the military overthrew the democratically elected president. The airspace over Niger has been closed, except for the flights from France and other nations evacuating their citizens. And in Texas, critics are calling on Governor Greg Abbott to reconsider the use of buoys in the Rio Grande River after 2 bodies were discovered near them. Mireya Villarreal has more.
The barrier spanning roughly a quarter of a mile, forcing determined migrants into deeper parts of the river. We saw it up close.
¿Por qué cruzaron aquí en esta área?
I ask why they are risking their lives to cross here, and they tell me it's their only option. Law enforcement on the Texas side say the buoys are necessary because they aren't sure how much longer they can manage.
And the cause of those deaths still unknown. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you about Beacon Capital Management. You know, I talk about them all the time, and their big deal is to make sure that you've made the right decisions. And to that regard, they have a thing coming up on the 17th of August at 10:30 a.m. over at the Marriott in Cool Springs. I think you want to be a member. You want to be there for this. It's the 2023 Market Halftime Report, Financial Trends, Opportunities, and Outlooks. Now, look, you're going to hear from the top Beacon people like John Maxon, Pete Benson, and I will be there for opening remarks. I'll have the opportunity to shake your hand, say hello, and welcome you in for the Market Halftime Report. I mean, think about it for a moment. Do you know if everything in your portfolio is dialed in right? Have you made the right decisions? Maybe a minor halftime adjustment is in order. This would be the seminar for you to attend. Now, if you want to find out more about it, you can go to beaconcm.com, or just call and talk to them at 615-488-9303. Again, 615-488-9303. And we will look forward to seeing you on August 17th at the Marriott in Cool Springs for the Beacon Capital Management Market Halftime Report. Please give them a call at 615-488-9303. 3:38 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. Mac Murray is in the newsroom, and he's monitoring events in the nation's capital right now. Donald Trump has now pleaded guilty to 4 additional counts. I'm sorry, excuse me. I am so sorry. Pleaded not guilty to 4 additional counts. And now he will be moving from the courthouse shortly via motorcade and be going over to Reagan National, where his jet is parked. And we are told that he will address reporters in a gaggle. That's what they call it. In a gaggle at the steps of the plane before he gets on and heads back, I guess, to New Jersey. So that is happening as we speak. That will be happening soon. He's still in the courtroom right now. He has pleaded, as I want to repeat that again, not guilty to these charges, and will now move over to Reagan National for a presser of some kind. We'll do the very best that we can to bring you those comments live, one way or the other, and Mac Murray's all over that. Chris Weber in the control room as well. And while we're waiting on the motorcade to take back off across the short distance from the Prettyman Courthouse over to Reagan National, a trip that with a motorcade and police escort probably won't take very long, probably about 4 or 5 minutes. We're going to move on with some other news of the day, but believe me, we're on a hairpin. Don't go anywhere. At a moment's notice, we'll revert back to this other story. You know that earlier this week, I guess it was Monday, Devon Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner, went up to Capitol Hill for a conversation that was transcribed. You know, I've made a point out of saying that it wasn't under oath, but it is brought to my attention, and I think correctly, that it is against the law to lie to Congress. So if that is true, then this has the same effect as a sworn statement, because you don't want to lie to Congress. So it seems to me it may not be sworn, but it's a small difference. He was well aware that if he lied to Congress, he could be brought up on charges. And so today they released the transcript, and we're getting to look at it for ourselves. And one thing that I can tell you is that Representative Dan Goldman is a liar, and he was in there and came out and tried to categorize this as something that it was not, and put words into Devon Archer's mouth that actually came out of his mouth. So that is very clear. One thing I want to tell you, if you would like to read, it's 138 pages. I have not had the time to read all 138 pages, but I can tell you this, you can read it for yourself. It is at the very top of yourfarb.com today. You click on that link and you'll be taken directly to all 138 pages of this transcript, and you can read it for yourself. Again, that's urfarb.com. It is there. So what can we draw from this? Well, it has been released, and I want to sort of get at this this stuff with Dan Goldman. The transcript from Devon Archer's sworn testimony has been released. During that testimony, Archer told Representative Dan Goldman that Hunter Biden had been placed on the board of directors for Ukrainian energy company Burisma in order to legally intimidate people. During that question period, Goldman asked Archer, so based on everything you saw and heard and observed, do you have any knowledge of Joe Biden having involvement with Burisma? Archer said that he did not have direct knowledge. It was his view that Burisma would not last were it not for Joe Biden's involvement. My only thought is I think Burisma would have gone out of business if it didn't have the brand attached to it, the brand being the Biden brand. That's my only honest opinion. Archer said, he went on to say the company was able to survive for as long as it did because Hunter was on the board. Just because of the brand, and the brand refers to the Biden name. Speaking with post-millennial Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said the brand was not only Biden, it was the vice presidency. That was the brand. He was selling not only the Biden name, but the position of the vice presidency. How does that have an impact, Goldman asked. Well, the capabilities to navigate D.C., that they were able to, basically be in the news cycle. I think that preserved them from a longevity standpoint. Like that's what I think. That's how I think holistically. But how would that work? Because people would be intimidated to mess with them. Archer Devon replied. In what way? Legally. They wouldn't mess with them because it had the Biden, name and the power of the vice presidency attached to it. Archer also spoke about the meetings during which Joe Biden would call in. He put him on speakerphone again occasionally. Specifics, like dinner, dinners occasionally. And I remember a dinner in Paris with the French energy company that we were speaking to an advisor, and then we were speaking to, and then it was really Rosemont Seneca advisor type of thing. Advisors kind of pitch at the end of the day, and there was this talk, and he said, we're at this restaurant in Paris, and he put him on speaker. How did that happen? There were other people. So did that happen? Yes, there were other people there. That dinner specifically was attended by myself, Hunter, Eric Schwerin, and the executives of the French energy company. There was another in Beijing, at some restaurant in Chengdu. I don't remember the specifics. It was like, especially with the time zone difference, you were there in these meetings where his dad would call and he would be talking to him or put him on speaker. I'm not going to, I'm not going to change. That's what happened. So they're pretty powerful testimony from Devon Archer in the full transcript. From frontpagemag.com, the allegation, let's hold on to that for a minute. And by the way, the judge in this particular case, Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, the Hunter Biden case, granted a request by NBC reporter Tom Winter to have the full Hunter Biden plea deal that was rejected and fell apart released for examination. The leaked version of the proposed deal was widely shared in the media last week. Large portions of the plea deal were read in court when Hunter Biden's proposed deal with prosecutors to plead guilty to tax charges and avoid a gun charge hit a snag, when Noreika said she needed more time to review the agreement. Those agreements should be publicly docketed, given that they were discussed in open court and played a role in Your Honor's decision. Winter wrote in his request, and it was granted. So that is out there as well for us to look at. Here's another assessment of what is in the transcript with Devon Archer. Hunter Biden's longtime business associate, writes the Daily Caller, Devon Archer testified to the House Oversight Committee Monday that the Biden family brand protected Ukrainian energy from Burisma from legal scrutiny, this according to a newly released transcript. Archer spoke to the committee about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings and the value the Biden name brought to Burisma, and when Hunter Biden and Archer were appointed to Burisma's board in 2014. My only thought is I think Burisma would have gone out of business if it didn't have the brand attached to it. That's my only honest opinion, Archer said. The capabilities to navigate D.C., you're getting a good sense of it. This was sort of the crux of it. And by the way, Dan Goldman really misrepresented a couple of things. It's been pointed out by some other reporters. He tried to put words into Devon Archer's mouth that actually were only spoken, when you look at the transcript, by Dan Goldman. It was in his question that he used a specific phrase, did not actually come out of the mouth of Devon Archer. So there you have it. That is there for your review. Again, if you want to read the entire 138, make your own decisions, it's at the top of the page at yourfarb.com. That's URFARB.com. And along there, you'll find links to all of the show prep that we provide each and every day on yourfarb.com, and learn more about how to get a hold of yourfarb.com by going to 997WTN.com. Check. Box checked. All right. So where are we? We are 48 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. The motorcade has not yet left the federal courthouse in D.C., and we are awaiting that short trip over to Reagan National, where the word is we will hear from Donald Trump about these latest developments, words out of his mouth, his attorney doing an exceptionally strong job out in front of the courthouse earlier, knocking back, the whole premise of this particular lawsuit and making the case that there seems to be sort of a ping-pong nature to this. Something happens to Hunter, the next day something happens to Trump. Something happens to Hunter, next day something happens, or in the next couple of days something happens to Trump. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like a ping-pong game. This is a very weak case. And it does appear that the Department of Justice is working on behalf of the Biden administration every step of the way. If your name is Biden, there is one standard for how you are treated by officials. A slap on the wrist, a rap on the knuckles.
Brian, it looks like the motorcade is underway.
All right.
I see several black SUVs rolling, so I'm assuming that's it.
That's C Street, and they'll go across and they'll go into the 3rd Street tunnel. And boy, once that happens, they will be right across the Potomac River. In fact, it looks like there is a live camera inside the motorcade.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to work when it goes into the tunnel here in just a short while. This is awesome. Yes, I mean, this is what you get. The motorcade is now making its way back to Reagan National. Let's see, it's going to go right past. Yeah. Going into the 3rd Street tunnel. So, yeah, they'll be there in just a few minutes. All right. We'll call it 51 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about the folks over at Everseal, and first explain what Everseal is. It is a sealant that is designed to protect your exterior wood and concrete, but it's no ordinary sealant. Let's talk about this for a while. The process starts with a deep cleaning all the way through to make your wood or concrete look as new as it possibly can. And then they apply their patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through the wood, all the way through the concrete, becomes a permanent part of your wood and concrete, and it will prevent further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Listen, that seems like a pretty good deal. Think how about money you'll spend. Just talk about a wooden deck. How much does it cost you to seal it every year? All right, think 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. You see, it can add up in a hurry. You can save a lot of money. You'll be done once, and you don't have to think about it again. Just enjoy your deck. Sound like something you'd be interested in learning more about? Why don't you reach out to the folks over at Everseal, Steve Nelson, the gang over there, 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA, and learn more at ever-seal.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. and it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
Trump has now departed a courthouse in Washington, D.C., where he pleaded not guilty to all charges related to January 6, now set to answer questions from reporters in the next few moments. 2 U.S. Navy soldiers arrested on espionage charges, and Michael Jordan may have made more money off the court than on it. That and more coming up at 4, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, the motorcade is approaching Reagan National, and we will break in with the former president's comments as soon as they are available to us. In the meantime, Dow Jones Industrials down 66, S&P down 11, NASDAQ down 13. What is it? It's all in the red today. What is driving the market? Let's check in with John Maxson over Beacon Capital Management for more details. Hello, John.
Hey, Brian. Well, yeah, the market was down again today. Really, what you saw was a little bit more fallout from the market with the Fitch downgrade yesterday, the U.S. stat. I mean, the one thing the market does not like is uncertainty. And really what it's going to start to turn its attention towards is the jobs report. Now, we did get a really positive report from Amazon, one of a few anyway, handful of companies. They just blew away their earnings expectations after hours. And then the other side of that, you had Apple, whose sales were down 1% year over year. So sort of a mixed bag in earnings of two really huge tech companies. Tomorrow, the jobs report comes out. If it's stronger than expected, it could mean additional interest rate hikes or higher rates for longer. So the market's going to be watching that really closely.
All right. Thank you very much, John Max. And learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It's 59 minutes, and again, we will break in immediately, no matter where we are, with the former president's comments when they are available. Stay tuned, everyone. 59 past the hour. Let me tell you about Armory Ranges, 2 locations for your convenience. The Nashville Armory is at 4290 Kenilwood Drive in Nashville, over 15,000 square feet, which combines retail, classrooms, and, of course, pistol and rifle-rated ranges, so you can learn to become proficient and stay that way. The second location, the Franklin Range at 390 Southwind Drive. There you'll find 10 state-of-the-art shooting ranges equipped with automated target control and custom shooting stalls that provide a virtually private shooting experience. And the folks who work there, well, they pride themselves on hiring folks with the expertise to advise even the most experienced shooters, but they have the patience to guide those who are new to the 2A world. No attitude and no pressure. To learn more, just go to armoryranges.com. That's right, armoryranges.com. And please let them know your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Got a complete weather and traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. Former President Trump is now headed to Reagan National Airport in a motorcade to answer reporters' questions after pleading not guilty to all criminal charges related to January 6. We'll carry that live right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Aaron Katersky was at that courthouse and reports.
There was a moment, and it only lasted a few seconds, but it was unmistakable when former President Trump appeared to look straight at Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. The last time they were in the room together was June 13th in Miami federal court after the indictment had been handed up in connection with the classified documents case. During that appearance, it didn't appear that the two men locked eyes. Here, Smith has been seen staring at Trump, and at a different point, Trump has been seen staring at Smith with his hands kind of clenched at the defense table.
In Southern California, prosecutors announced 2 active-duty U.S. Navy sailors have been charged on espionage offenses related to national security and tied to China. The 2 China-born sailors, Petty Officer Wei and Petty Officer Zhao, are accused of transmitting sensitive information to PRC officials, including documents on naval weapons systems. Assistant Attorney General for National Security Matt Olson says these cases reflect the, quote, audacity of the PRC to gain access to American national defense intelligence.
Make no mistake, as a department, we will continue to use every tool in our arsenal to counter the threat and to deter China and those who aid them in violating the rule of law and threaten our national security.
And he went on to say that China, when compared to other nations, quote, stands apart in terms of the threat that its government proposes to the United States. Right now in Middle Tennessee, you can now text for help from police in Rutherford County. The service is especially for the hearing impaired, but also designed for when someone needs help in a domestic violence or human trafficking situation, when that assailant is nearby and could otherwise hear when the police are called. This way, it's all silent. And Michael Jordan did not enjoy the same success as an NBA team owner that he did as a player, but his financial success remained constant. Here's Brian Clark.
Michael Jordan's name is synonymous with winning in the NBA. The most popular player in history won 6 NBA titles and became a global icon. But that winning did not extend to his stint as the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. The team made just 3 playoff appearances in the 13 years Jordan owned the team. That ownership tenure came to an end Thursday, but Jordan scores a financial win on the way out. According to our partners at ESPN, Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin paid $3 billion for a majority share in the team. Jordan, in 2010, paid $275 million.
And again, the former president any moment should be approaching the podium to field questions at Reagan National Airport, circling around those criminal charges against him related to January 6th. We'll carry that live right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTM as he exits those motorcades. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Day for America, and it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much, everyone.
Do you want these trials to happen before the 2024 election?
Additional questions for Donald Trump as he boards the plane?
Well, that was it. He gave a quick statement there at the airport, Reagan National. It's been an interesting trip down memory lane for me, watching a motorcade run through town and then run up to catch the former president at the base of the aircraft, making the case that this should never be happening right now. A brief statement from the former president after he was arraigned today on 4 counts having to do with January 6th. We're gonna allow our commercial breaks to catch up. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll pick up our coverage in just a moment. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. It is now 10 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. It is 10 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock in the nation's capital, where just a few moments ago we heard from the former president after he has been charged with 4 additional counts with regard to the activity surrounding January 6th. And so because this is because we are just doing a lot of breaking news coverage here, let me, in case you missed it, because it came upon us very quickly. Are we prepared here, Chris, to re-rack the? No, we're waiting on that. Okay, we are in a moment. We will replay what the president had to say from the very top. Wasn't very much, wasn't very long, but nonetheless. So he got into his motorcade over at the courthouse, which is not that far from in Northwest Washington, and went through the 3rd Street Tunnel across the river, the Potomac River, and into Virginia, where Reagan National is. The motorcade, actually, it was quite interesting. The motorcade was carried live from inside the press van. And, so you saw exactly what was going on as it got there. And then we have the former president gathering with reporters right at the bottom of the stairs of Trump Force One. And here is what the former president said in its entirety.
Day for America. And it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much.
Wow, I love that. If you can't persecute him, you prosecute him. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, if past his prologue, what we will find here is that in a few days, Donald Trump's numbers will go up. Every single time they bring an additional charge against Donald Trump, his numbers get stronger. So I don't know, how that's working out for Democrats, if that's the idea. But one way or the other, the 4 charges have been added to the other 74, now 78 charges pending against this president. And it's unheard of. I heard somebody say it's sort of surreal that a former president is going through this, but it's become somewhat familiar because it happens so regularly. I want to go back and play the comments from Alina Haba, who is one of President Trump's attorneys, speaks on behalf of the former president. And here's what she said as she met with reporters outside the courthouse. And it seems like they're going to be doing the full frontal assault. They're not going to shy away from talking to reporters. They're not going to shy away from making their case. And here is Alina Haba pointing out how there is a ping pong quality to what has happened in the nation's capital of late.
On March 17th, Hunter accidentally admits that it was his laptop from hell. The next day, DA Alvin Bragg indicts President Trump. June 8th, an FBI document is released showing that the Ukrainians paid the Biden crime family millions and millions of dollars. The next day, the Mar-a-Lago raid and the Mar-a-Lago indictment. Last week, Hunter Biden's sweetheart plea deal fell through when the judge realized it had blanket immunity. The following day, a superseding indictment against Donald Trump. July 31st, Devin Archer goes to testify in front of the House. That was only after they failed to put him in jail prior to the fact. What happens the next day? The January 6th indictment that we're here for today. This is not a coincidence. This is election interference at its finest against the leading candidate right now for president, for either party. President Trump is under siege in a way that we have never seen before. President Trump And his legal team and everyone on his team will continue to fight, not for him, but for the American people. I'll take some questions.
Well, we'll hold off on the questions till later, but there it was. And it's sort of a very strong point here about the ping-pong nature of how this whole thing has gone. I got to tell you, I'm not a lawyer, but I think, based on what I've heard from a lot of lawyers that I respect, there's not much to these charges, these January 6th charges. And what's really sad about the whole thing is there's a fairly good chance the way the jury pool will stack up in the District of Columbia. If they don't get a change of venue, and I doubt they will, they're probably going to lose this case just simply because the jury pool is so deeply blue. So deeply blue. I mean, I think Joe Biden got 92% of the vote in the last election in the District of Columbia. What does that tell you? Very, very deeply blue. So I don't know that he may have a better chance in the Court of Appeals, and it may end up before the High Court, some of these things. But the question is just, how do you get this all done in the middle of a presidential election? I think Trump's going to run, and he's going to separate these things out. We're going to run a political campaign. We're going to run the political campaign we want to. And over here, I'm going to let my lawyers handle all this other stuff and bring me in when I am needed so that they can continue to go forward. I want to open up the phone lines at 615-737-9986, get a sense of how you are feeling about all of the events of the last hour and what has been said by the former president and by his attorney. 615-737-9986. How do you feel about the events of the day? Are you angry? Are you upset? Why? 615-737-9986. The president's jet now has taxied away from Reagan National on its way back, I assume, to New Jersey, from whence it came. And the former president making, as you heard a few moments ago, comments from the steps of his aircraft before it left. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Let me start, if I can. I'm going to pull this up where I can see it. Let's go to Bill in Smyrna. Bill, good afternoon. Bill, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Bill?
Brian, I need to ask you this question. Forgetting about all these other suspicious accusations against the president, we do have him admitting on tape that he stopped made an opposing company fire their attorney, or otherwise he would hold back the money. He said that in his own words. Why is that alone not enough to get him out of office? I'll hang up and listen.
I'm not sure about your question, Bill. Can you lay that out again so that I get a fair shot at it?
He hung up.
He hung up. I'm sorry. I wish I could have understood your question better, but I was unable to catch it all. We'll try to catch it another time. Ray in Cookville. Ray, I'm sorry. Are we okay? Ray, good afternoon. You're on with Brian in the Drive. What do you say, Ray?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for taking my call. The more and more they try to pile on him, makes me support him that much more. And what I'd really like to say is I think it's about time to do what our founding fathers would have done.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think in the United States right now, there is a tremendous amount of frustration that is piling up. A tremendous about what politics has become. Ray, I don't know that, we need to throw tea into the harbor yet, but I take your point, and I think that there are a lot of people right there with you. Larry in Grundy. Larry? I'm having trouble. Larry in Grundy? Oh, and Larry's gone. Let's try Sherry in Nashville. Sherry, you're up with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Sherry? Well, we're having some kind of major phone faux pas. I don't know what's going on. We're going to take a break, come back, and maybe we'll get some more calls in just a moment. 615-737-9986. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Assisted family care, one of the hardest things we see as we grow older is that our parents are growing older as well. And maybe they're starting to struggle with the day-to-day things that were once so easy. Reminds us they're approaching an age where they're going to need more help as they age. Well, this is where assisted family care can help. They can connect you with a responsible, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could very well qualify for a little-known benefit to help cover these kinds of expenses. Assisted family care has years of experience in helping those in Middle Tennessee who qualify to get access to this benefit. You see, many veterans are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. Now, the application process is daunting and confusing, but call Assisted Family Care in Nashville. They have years of experience in cutting through the red tape. Assisted Family Care can help. Assisted Family Care is there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
Former President Trump spoke to Americans briefly after his arraignment for his indictment related to January 6th, Election Day in Nashville. And today's Money News, those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour. We have been covering the the arraignment of Donald Trump on 4 additional charges with relation to January 6th. And he made a brief statement at the airport before taking off in Trump Force One. If you've been with us, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to weigh in here. Richie in Clarksville. Richie, good afternoon. You're on the drive with Brian Wilson. What do you say, Richie?
Hey, how you doing? Actually, it's been nice to have someone taking over for Phil Valentine. I was a long-time listener, and I have two quick questions. First of all, I was going to give you the answer to the other gentleman that called. He wanted to know, since Biden came from his own lips that he admitted that he had the attorney fired from Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that enough evidence that they can do something with that? And the second question, I have, well, go ahead and answer that, and I'll tell you.
Well, I think that is an impeachable offense, it seems to me, especially when you consider the fact that at that same time, it is provable that Hunter Biden was bringing in money from Burisma, and it was funneling it into other family members. So I think that you're beginning to get really, really close to an impeachable offense. Good point. And thank you, Bill from Smyrna, for raising.
And it was, oh, cool. I was just going to answer that for you. And the other question was, what is the worst case for Trump with all these indictments that would prevent him from running for president? What can it physically that can keep him from running?
Well, Richie, I'd be a fool to try to answer that question because we're in uncharted territory. There's not a lot of precedent to go on here with some of this stuff that we're seeing. I mean, it's shocking that we're in a situation where unprecedented things are happening almost on a daily basis, and we've never had to go down this path. We're plowing a lot of new ground here, Richie. We really are. I don't know. I have read several stories that said that even if he were to run from jail, that he could still win, and then from jail he could pardon himself and be released. I mean, that's just, who knows? I don't know, but I'll tell you, there are some real questions about some of these other cases. I think maybe there are stronger legal arguments to be made against the former president, but this is just a bunch of hooey. There's nothing in any of this that's very strong. That's my personal opinion, and the opinion of some other legal experts that I look at and have great respect for. Larry, Clarksville. Larry, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Larry?
Well, Brian, thanks for taking my call, and I will be seeing you guys on the 15th.
Good.
And your friend and radio buddy, Matt Murphy, has challenged me. And then I sent him a message and said, no, I didn't think that was going to work. And he said on air that I was backing out, so it's now back on.
Okay. We're talking about what happened today. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, sir, I do. Believe me, I do. And I actually do hope that this thing goes to trial, because then Trump's lawyers can subpoena everyone involved, and then they can, hold some of these sorry son of a guns that have ever said anything responsible.
Okay, Larry, thank you. See you on the 15th. Let's get one more call in here. Linda in Manchester. Linda, you're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Linda?
Okay, you made a statement a while ago talking about Trump saying that he said he won the election. Well, as of 4 o'clock or somewhere right around there, the next morning after the election, after that night, they came on the news and they showed a clip with Trump and I was talking to him, and they said, well, how do you feel about winning? And he said, well, I figure I probably would. Of course, I didn't know for sure, but anyway, they said, and Trump has won the presidency. And then I went back to bed, and when I woke up, they were saying, Joe Biden now is getting in the lead. And I thought, no, President Trump's done won the thing. So can you explain that?
In a word, no. I wish that I could. Listen, there are a lot of questions. A lot of people out there, do believe that there were major problems with the last election, and Donald Trump, I think, is one of them. I think he absolutely believes that he was robbed. I think that that is his mindset, and that's why I think these latest charges against him are not going to hold any water. Because how can you prove that he didn't really believe that it was a bad election? I mean, you'd have to get a conviction here. You have to prove that he knew he lost, and he went ahead and said some of these things otherwise. I don't know that you can prove that. I think Donald Trump thinks he lost, and I think a lot of other people think that. I'm sorry. I think Donald Trump believes that the election was taken from him, and there are other people who feel that way as well. And I don't know how you get a conviction on these charges, because I don't know how you get inside the mind of Donald Trump to know what he felt or what he didn't feel. It's been a pretty interesting, hour and a half. Let's take a break, do some news. It's 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 74 degrees in Nashville, and it looks like the brunt of those showers and storms have passed through the mid-state for today. Expecting another round tomorrow morning into the afternoon. Full forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Former President Trump says this should never happen in America after pleading not guilty to 4 charges related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol.
This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much, everyone.
Trump also mentioned how it was sad to see the state of Washington, D.C., referencing the graffiti and broken buildings. Election day in Davidson County, there are 12 mayoral candidates for Nashville, and the winner must receive a majority of the vote to avoid a runoff election on September 14th. Those polls are open until 7 p.m. tonight. Now over to the Money News, Daria Albinger.
Stocks closed lower as the market's red-hot rally continues to cool off. The Dow fell 67 points, the Nasdaq lost 14, the S&P gave up 12. Now, this wasn't nearly the tumble that stocks took on Wednesday, a day after Fitch Ratings dropped the U.S. government's credit from AAA to AA+, and the move may not mean as much for the markets from here on out, but it does give economists a few things to think about: whether the economy can avoid a recession, what to expect in corporate profits, and where interest rates may be heading. First-time jobless claims rose last week, but overall the number is still relatively low. A new study finds we're more generous if we're in a good mood. Professors from the University of Massachusetts and Georgia Institute of Technology studied posts on the social media platform now known as X. They found that in most cases, charitable campaigns that are upbeat are more likely to encourage donations than those that are sad. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you, if I can, about a Legend Steakhouse. Listen, there's multiple locations across Middle Tennessee. A good food at a fair price. To find the locations, it's pretty easy. Just go to legendsteakhouse.com. And if you're headed home tonight and you think you want a good steak, you're not going to find a better steak than you get at Johnny Fleeman's in Legend Steakhouse. You should also think about them for lunch. Comes with a meat and two, fried pork chops, smoky mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow-cooked pot roast with gravy, 14 vegetables in casseroles to choose from, just about anything you can mention. It's mom kind of cooking. And in fact, these recipes came from Johnny's mom. He borrowed them some 30 years ago. Well, never brought back the recipe book. Legend Steakhouse, good locations all over. It's legendsteakhouse.com for locations or the online menu. They've been around for 34 years. You're going to love your next visit to Legend Steakhouse. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Just to recap in just a matter of seconds what has happened here in the first part of the show. The arraignment was held in Washington, D.C. for Donald Trump on 4 counts relating to January 6th. I think they're pretty thin-grueled. I don't think there's a whole lot there. There was a brief statement by the former president as he got back on his jet to depart the Washington, D.C. area. And he said, if you can't persecute them, prosecute them. That seems to be the policy these days, to persecute and prosecute. And if you can't do one, work on the other. I think a pretty interesting statement there from the former president. Look, he's doing very well. He is by and far away the Republican choice to lead this party in the next election as their presidential candidate. DeSantis not doing that well. And virtually every poll that you have out there, you have Trump leading DeSantis by 30 to, in some cases, 40 points or more. So it looks pretty good for the former president, although, he's also got to deal, in addition to running for the office of the presidency, with 78 counts and various lawsuits that have been filed against him. So we'll continue to watch that, and we'll recap all of this a little bit later in case you missed it in the 5 o'clock hour. I want to talk about 2024 in a bigger way, and I think this is interesting. A lot of bad news here in today's cycle for Joe Biden. Black voters in Georgia aren't automatically lining up behind Joe Biden. This is from PJ Media. The Biden 2024 campaign is banking on winning Georgia Electoral College votes as part of its reelection strategy. After all, the Peach State went Biden's way in 2020, and the last two senatorial elections went to the Democrats, although those two elections were outlying contests that could have gone one way or the other. Georgia is a curious case in modern politics. The vast majority of the state is solidly red, though there are pockets of the state that trend blue. Think of urban areas like Atlanta and Savannah, as well as more moderate to conservative Democrat pocket in the southwest corner of the state. If it turns out that not all black voters in Georgia are ready to hand the keys to the White House back over to Joe Biden for a second term, unsurprisingly, for many of the same reasons, same reasons that voters in other demographic blocs have their hesitations about the president. Some black voters are considering alternatives, be they GOP candidates or third-party options, or sitting out the 2024 presidential race altogether. In the Atlanta metro areas, home to the second-largest black population in the U.S., black residents said the pain of inflation and setback on policies such as student loan forgiveness have left them with misgivings about Biden's candidacies. The tepid sentiment is a vulnerability for the president in an election that will likely hinge on voter turnout in a handful of swing states. It highlights the risks that uninspired black voters stay home or look for third-party alternatives. This from PJ Media. Have some other news here regard to... Oh, yeah, here we go. This new CNN poll spells big trouble for Biden. 51% of Americans saying that the economy is getting worse, and Biden received a 41% approval rating. When his handling of the economy is factored in, Biden received just a 37% approval rating, according to the poll. His approval rating also drops down to 30% when considering his handling of inflation. Independent voters were less pleased with Biden, giving him a 26% approval rating for his handling of inflation. See, then this is the thing I keep saying. At some point, when you start to see black voters peel away, when you start hearing that independents are less pleased with Biden, and that a poll of all Americans, when you consider the economy, inflation, has Biden sitting somewhere around 30% approval, it doesn't sound very good. And if I were Democrats, and I'm not, but if I were the Democrats, I'd be going, maybe it's time to have a conversation with old Uncle Joe, old Lunch Bucket Joe, because this is not going so well, and we can't afford to sit here and do nothing. You know, I think, have I said, Chris, tell me how many times I've said this. Back me up on this. How many times have I said, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but my sense of it is Democrats will not allow Joe Biden to become the nominee because they understand that he cannot win, and it's going to take a party elder to try to convince him of that, right?
I can't even count the number of times you've said it.
I've said that a lot, haven't
yes, indeed.
And who's the name that I mention most often?
I would assume Gavin Newsom?
No, Barack Obama. No, I'm talking about the name of who would persuade Joe.
Oh, yeah, Barack Obama, yeah.
Yeah, Barack Obama. From the Western Journal. The Washington Post reports that the former president, Barack Obama, made a visit to the White House back in June. I didn't hear anything about this in June, do you? I don't remember anything about this. So it was off the books. It was off the record. Went back to the White House in June where he warned Biden that Trump may pose a greater threat than he currently realizes. The Washington Post explained that Obama raised concerns about Donald Trump's political strengths, including an intensely loyal following, a Trump-friendly conservative media ecosystem, and a polarized country, underlying his worry that Trump could be a more formidable candidate than many Democrats realize. Obama assured Biden that he's committed to helping him win a second term in office and will do all he can to get him reelected. The visit was reportedly part of a regular catch-up between the two men who served as president and vice president, respectively, between 2009 to 2017. According to the Post sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, Obama also made it clear his concerns were not about Biden's political abilities. See, now we're getting into spin, I think, but rather recognition of Trump's iron grip on the Republican Party. I think that what happened in June is that he came in there and, that as this gets reported, everybody applies their spin to it. Nobody really knows what was said because the people in the room were Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They clear out. Their luncheons were always no staff. And so who knows exactly what Barack Obama told Joe Biden, but the fact that the meeting took place to me says they are beginning to make the case to Joe that he may not be able to prevail. And I think this is what a delicate dance it is. He's the president of the United States. There's nobody who can go in there and have that kind of conversation with him, except perhaps for Barack Hussein Obama, who can go in there and say, you know what, Joe, I'm not sure this is going to work out. Why don't you go take a nice vacation during August, go down to the beach, put your feet up, and decide whether or not you think you can win this thing, and then let's act accordingly after that. I think Barack Obama was there to start the process of explaining to the old guy, the big guy, that he can't really win this coming election and that they're going to have to make a change. I think that's what this is about. We'll see, but trust me, the fact that the meeting occurred is the most important thing. The spin that is applied to it by others is not going to be all that reliable. The only two people who know what was really said are Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Then there's this. I'm just going to throw this out here. I don't know what's going on with Ron DeSantis. Governor Ron DeSantis wasn't mincing words during a 3-day campaign swing in New Hampshire. Pushing a tough candidate persona, DeSantis said he would gut the number of employees working for the federal government. We're going to have all these deep state people, we're going to start slitting throats on day one. Direct quote. DeSantis said on Sunday if he were elected president in 2024, he also declared that as president, Mexican drug cartels were going to be shot stone cold dead, which I don't have a problem with, quite frankly, but it is pretty strong language. DeSantis made the comments at a barbecue campaign hosted by former Senator Scott Brown. The governor is in the middle of a campaign reset following weeks of campaign facing financial problems. On Monday, he unveiled a Declaration of Economic Independence, a 10-point plan in New Hampshire that touched on helping the middle class and small business recover from COVID pandemic. But these very strong statements they're raising eyebrows a little. Not everyone accepted DeSantis' use of this violent rhetoric. Olivia Troy, a former Homeland Security and Counterterrorism advisor to former Vice President Mike Pence, said DeSantis was no different than former President Trump. No different than Trump, except that he's got the personality of a doormat. Slitting throats of federal employees on day one, is that a threat, DeSantis? This is atrocious, she said. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit too much of hyperbole, but one way or the other, it was said, it is raising eyebrows. I leave it for you to decide whether. I'm not triggered, I'm not offended, but it is strong language for a presidential candidate to use. So there you have it. That's the 2024 update. Not good news for Joe Biden. Polls look bad. Black voters not lining up behind Joe. And a visit from Barack to, I think, begin the process of trying to convince the Joe Biden that he may be a one-term president. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you know how much it costs before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at just $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. Now, if you marry that with a high deductible insurance plan that you may already have, it could potentially save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded waiting rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
The former president says this should never happen in America after pleading not guilty to charges related to January 6th. 2 U.S. Navy soldiers charged with espionage, some crime in Tennessee, plus the CDC advisory panel recommending parents giving their infants the RSV vaccine. That and more, 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Mac Maury. Just a moment here before we have to go to the news. Let me just share this. How about this? Louisiana law requiring In God We Trust displayed at all public schools in Louisiana. It now goes into effect. It went into effect on Tuesday. HB 8 requires public schools to display the national motto of the United States, In God We Trust, in every classroom of every building. The Louisiana government has provided additional guidelines on how the national motto is to be displayed, including its size and composition. The nature of the display shall be determined by each governing authority, with a minimum requirement that the national motto be displayed on a poster or framed document that is at least 11 inches by 14 inches, and the motto shall be the central focus of the poster or framed document and shall be printed in large and easily read font. How about that? Louisiana, getting it done. 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, Eurofix has a very different business philosophy. They staff all of their locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, so they can be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you noticed how difficult it can be to get a right now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers more than 2 weeks out to get an appointment, but not Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, why not call Eurofix? Owner Aaron Stokes says, we will never be too busy for our customers. We're here to take their pain away now. Eurofix repairs all European cars. Eurofix says yes to speedy repairs when others can't or won't. Family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
It's 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Looks like the heaviest of those showers and thunderstorms have passed for today. Expecting more tomorrow. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Former President Trump pled not guilty to 4 charges related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Stephen Portnoy was inside the courtroom.
Once the judge entered, it was all business. She went through the proceeding swiftly. She explained to the former president his rights, particularly that he had the right to remain silent. She asked for a plea, and a not guilty plea was entered on behalf of the former president. She went through all of the particular counts, all the penalties involved, the many years that Trump could face imprisoned if he's found guilty of these counts. She asked if Mr. Trump understood all that, and he said yes.
The former president, after the hearing, gave a brief statement at the Reagan National Airport.
This is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
And in Southern California, prosecutors announced this afternoon that 2 active duty U.S. Navy sailors have been charged on espionage offenses related to national security and tied to China. One of the sailors, 22-year-old petty officer, second class Hin Chow Patrick Wei, was arrested in San Diego yesterday and charged with espionage for passing images and locations for various Navy ships, as well as dozens of technical manuals for numerous ships across the fleet, all for cash payments. And the CDC advisory panel recommended parents give their infant children the RSV vaccine to protect them during the most contagious seasons. Andy Field brings us details.
The CDC advisors recommending babies up to 8 months old born at the height of the October winter RSV season should get the vaccine. Also, babies 8 to 19 months old at increased risk of the disease, and saying newborns at the same high risk time should get the shot in their first week of life. The CDC has also recommended adults over 60 get the RSV vaccines, available this fall.
And the CDC director expected to sign off on those recommendations. Crime in Tennessee. A man died after a shooting at Donaldson this morning. It happened at an apartment complex. 25-year-old Jose River Garcia called officials after being shot by what he said were 3 men trying to rob him before they ran away. Witnesses' statements lined up with those claims. Anyone with information is asked to call Metro Police. And over to the Lone Star State, critics are calling on Texas Governor Greg Abbott to reconsider the use of buoys in the Rio Grande River after 2 bodies were discovered near them. Maria Villarreal has more.
The barrier spanning roughly a quarter of a mile, forcing determined migrants into deeper parts of the river. We saw it up close.
¿Por qué cruzaron aquí en esta área?
I ask why they are risking their lives to cross here, and they tell me it's their only option. Law enforcement on the Texas side say the buoys are necessary because they aren't sure how much longer they can manage.
And the cause of those deaths still unknown. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather upcoming. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, on a very busy news day, this third day of August. We've been focusing most of our time on what has been happening in the nation's capital because Donald Trump has made an appearance inside a D.C. federal courthouse and has added 4 charges to those already pending against him, and these have to do with January 6th. We're gonna take you all through it. I mean, I think perhaps let's hear first from the man himself, former President Trump, after he pleaded not guilty at the airport, getting ready to get back on Trump Force One, and he met briefly with reporters. Here's what he had to say.
Well, thank you very much. This is a very sad day for America, and it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much, everyone.
And with that, he turned and he was up the steps to Trump Force One, and a short time later, he was winging his way back. I guess it was to New Jersey. And so there is the former president. Pleading not guilty to these additional 4 charges. I got to tell you, I think that the Trump team is going to be putting out an all fronts attack against these charges whenever possible. I mean, for example, while reporters were waiting on this to happen, he trots out Alina Haba, who is one of his attorneys representing him, to go out there and make the case and to do some, what they call interacting with the press corps, who was outside waiting with their cameras. And she started out by making the case, and a pretty effective case at that there's a lot of ping pong going on here. Something happens to Biden Hunter, and then the Justice Department lowers the boom on Donald Trump, and went through a whole list of things where that had been the case. Something happens bad to Hunter Biden or to the Biden family, and then the next thing you know, they're doing something else to Donald Trump. And then after she got through that point, she decided she would take a few questions. Let's listen into a very capable attorney, Alina Haba, talking about the president's case with reporters.
I'll take some questions.
Well, thank you. I know the president has called this a witch hunt. You just laid out several examples of that. Any other thoughts that the president has communicated to you in terms of why this is going on and then why he calls it a witch hunt?
I think a witch hunt is really the way that anybody should describe this, because it's not something we've seen in our time. This is not even political. This is beyond that. A witch hunt is when you relentlessly attack your opponent, when you relentlessly attack the thing that you are most afraid of. People are afraid of somebody that cannot be bought by Washington. People are afraid of somebody who is independently wealthy and who has given up his good life to fight for this country. And that frightens a lot of politicians who are career politicians, unfortunately, because he'll get back there, and I know he'll be fighting for every one of us so that this doesn't happen to us.
You see, this case is about free speech, but the special counsel says Trump could have disagreed with the results and talked about it. No crime there. The difference is what he did to try and switch the votes.
So what is it that he did to try and switch the votes that you refer to? By bringing cases, by using the law in an appropriate manner, unlike what we're sitting here today seeing. This is not appropriate. What President Trump did is he said, go patriotically and peacefully and protest. That is an American right. That is why we are America and we are not a third world country. Although I will say that today, I don't feel very much like we are in America. Yes.
This case should go forward before or after the 2024 presidential election?
I think that every court needs to look at this as a whole, right? It's not about the January 6th case. It's about the fact that in the matter of a couple months, we have seen them try and tie up, and me as an attorney, I've never seen this, tie up one individual who's running a campaign, running for office for president, so that he is in court, in depositions, and distracted, so that he won't properly run for 2024. And frankly, it's not going to work.
Is the legal team going to argue that the election was stolen?
I don't think that that's the argument that needs to be made. I think that anybody that believes that is misreading this. The truth is, as an American, there were questions that he had regarding the election integrity. We've seen documents come out, we've seen documentaries come out showing that there were issues with the election. And frankly, by bringing this, I don't think Jack Smith really thought it through. There only has to be proof that, number one, President Trump believed that this election was not completely honest. And number two, Jack Smith has opened himself up to a can of worms that we can now look at and really examine.
If you believe that he's innocent and that this is all a setup, why not bring it to trial as soon as possible before the election so that you can clear his name?
Yeah, I would love to do that, but there's something called discovery. And when somebody wants to say that the 2020 election was perfect and that President Trump has no right to object to it, we've got to go show them all the facts. And there's a lot of facts to show. So everybody has their time. And to say that Donald Trump should then be rushed and not be given the same fair proceeding that anybody else is just, frankly, un-American. It's not fair. It's not the way our system works.
A lot of the lawyers who helped him try to overturn the election are unnamed co-conspirators in the indictment. Jenna Ellis isn't. Why do you think that is?
I'm not going to speak to co-conspirators or anybody else. I represent President Trump.
Let's go one more.
Alina, there are a number of, there's testimony and there's a number of aides that have said that the president was made aware that he lost the election and yet continued to argue that it was stolen from him. How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, I think that everybody was made aware that he lost the election, but that doesn't mean that that was the only advice he was given. As anybody understands what happens in the Oval Office, there are a numerous amount of advisors and politicians and lawyers, not just one or two, that are giving you advice and telling you what they believe is true. So he may not agree with Mike Pence. He may not agree with one of his lawyers, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other people advising him exactly the opposite. And the president has a right, as every one of us do, to listen to several opinions and make their decision.
I remember hearing Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams argue their elections were not right.
Absolutely.
I mean, and the weaponization of the DOJ didn't happen then.
No, of course not. But if your last name's Trump, it's very different. So Hillary Clinton could have a problem when she lost the election, and we could have a complete liberal meltdown, as we all saw. But when we have dignified disagreements, we take them to court. We say do things patriotically and peacefully. He's to blame for things that he did not himself do. And that's what we're seeing. Frankly, folks, this is not about that. This is about politics. This is about 2024. Period. The end.
Again, that's Alina Haba making comments outside the courthouse while they were waiting on the proceedings to begin. Boy, she's effective, isn't she? I think she's really powerful. And I think she's going to be very prominent in the days ahead. I think either on the president's legal team or somewhere down the path if he becomes president again. I think these charges, these latest charges, are just made up of the thinnest material. It's just not much there. I mean, how in the world do you get inside the head of former President Trump and know what he was thinking? In order to get a conviction here, you have to be able to prove that the former president had been told that he lost the election, that there was no funny business, and that he believed it and then went out and did things otherwise. I don't think that's the case. I think Donald Trump can make the case. I listened to everybody. I made up my decision. I sided with people who thought that there were some irregularities about the election, and that's when I went forward and asked for some of the things that I asked for. I believed it. That's all he has to say, and it's done, as far as I can tell. You know who else believes this is a weak case? Alan Dershowitz, who was speaking last night on Fox. I find myself in complete agreement with him. This is about 1:30 of Alan Dershowitz explaining why he thinks it's a weak case.
In the indictment, they acknowledge that there are these freedoms, but then they claim that this is the key point, that Donald Trump actually believed that he lost the election, that everything he did was fraudulent, that he conspired with unnamed lawyers mostly to affect the election. Now, you're allowed to challenge elections. Indeed, the best way to challenge elections is to come up with a slate of alternate electives. That's what a court said in Hawaii in 1960. That's been the case throughout our history. So the government has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that subjectively Donald Trump actually believed that he lost the election and acted contrary to that belief. Now, I read the indictment very carefully. There is no smoking gun. There is no one who is credibly prepared to testify that Donald Trump said to him, I know personally I lost the election. There's a lot of evidence that people told him he lost the election, but you know Donald Trump, and you know that he's going to make up his own mind. And they're going to have a very hard time proving that. Now, it's the District of Columbia. 90-some-odd% of the jury pool will have voted against him, so they may actually get a conviction from a D.C. jury. But will it survive appellate review and review to the Supreme Court? I do not think so. I think he may lose in the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, but I think he will probably win in the United States Supreme Court if they grant review, and they should grant review. When you have the president of the United States' people going after his opponent in a political election, it has to be beyond reproach. It has to be the strongest case in history. This doesn't meet that standard.
No, it doesn't. It's a weak case. By the way, it must be fabulous to have your own 757. He's already back in Newark, New Jersey. I love that. I tell you, if I ever become a billionaire, the first thing I'm going to do is buy me a 757. And then I'm going to fly wherever I want to fly, whenever I want to fly there.
That's just wasteful, Brian. I'll just get a much smaller jet.
Yeah, I mean, I could do with a Cessna Citation.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a pretty good jet. But Trump can go anywhere in the world on that aircraft. There are no restrictions. I mean, he's got enough of an aircraft to go anywhere on the planet because he can. You got to have a big enough plane to get across the pond, as they say. Well, anyway, one way or the other, he's back in New Jersey. Okay. So there you have it. Look, how will this end up? Look, I think that you've got a grand jury in the District of Columbia, heavily made up of Democrats. I did some research on that today. D.C. has 28% Republicans and 56% Democrats, according to the Pew people. 16% say that they have no lean one way or the other. I guess they consider themselves independents. But I will say this. I think it's correct to say that in the last election, Donald Trump got more than 90% of, excuse me, that Joe Biden got more than 90% of the vote in the District of Columbia. Joe Biden got more than 90% of the vote in the District of Columbia. So that's your jury pool. And there may be a request for a change of venue, but they're very rarely granted, it seems, out of D.C. Could happen. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is thin gruel. It will not stand up. It will not survive. And I think Alan Dershowitz has it right. So he goes to the Court of Appeals, maybe given the nature of what's going on in the presidential elections and that complication, maybe even be asked to go straight to the Supremes on an expedited basis. That could be done, and we'll see whether that happens or not. I think he wins in the Supreme Court handily. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
A brief statement from Donald Trump after pleading not guilty to all charges against him in the latest indictment, this one related to January 6th, a text feature for the Rutherford County Police, and a potential fire risk in certain Hyundai and Kia models. Those stories and more. 5:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Busy news day here on the drive. Glad to bring you all this news and information. We're trying to stay on top of it, so you have the very latest. I want to talk about border news for a while. Remember when Title 42 expired, we were expecting there was going to be this surge. I think, honestly, the Biden people did what they needed to do with the Mexican officials to just try to limit that. Seems like there was some coordination between the two, so that the chaos that was expected to ensue did not. It was left on the Mexican side and not seen on the American side as much. But migrant encounters dropped after that expiration, and then as soon as everybody walked away and said, "Oh, not much happening here anymore right now, I guess we'll move on," in July they saw an uptick. And New York Mayor Eric Adams has called for a state of emergency. Here we go. The Pentagon from News Nation is pulling back 1,100 active duty troops from the southern border now, as Customs and Border Protection report an uptick in migrant encounters between June and July. In other words, they sent people down there, and when the surge actually happened, they're pulling people away. U.S. deployed 1,500 troops to the border for a temporary 90-day military presence in anticipation of a dramatic, increase in illegal border crossings. Instead, migrant encounters dropped. But migrant encounters have seen a recent uptick in the past month. 132,744 incidents in July, which was a 33% increase from June. So it's right back pretty much where it was. It's just, they were able to manage it until the cameras went away. And with Bill Malugin not standing on the border each and every day down there with Fox News, nobody's really covering this. And now, when nobody's looking, they're going to bring the 1,500 troops back. They will conclude their mission on August 8th. And the remaining 400 will be extended through the 31st. Troops deployed to the southern border did not help on the front lines or interact with migrants, but only assisted with data entry. In other words, really, honestly, all these troops were doing down there were just processing more people more quickly, not trying to actually enforce the border laws of this country. As the troops get sent back home, New York Mayor Eric Adams is talking about the impact of migrants coming across the border. He's throwing in here's a different story on that, hotair.com. Mayor Eric Adams finally throwing in the towel. He admits that the current non-policy on illegal immigration is a disaster. He says it doesn't go far enough, but his capitulation on the issue reveals a more profound truth. Sanctuary policies were always a fraud. It was virtue signaling back in the 1980s when everybody said, oh, well, don't worry. If you can get into this country, you come to Atlanta, you come to New York, you come to Chicago, you come to Seattle, you come to Los Angeles, you come to San Francisco, and we will welcome you in because we are going to be sanctuary cities. Until people actually started taking them up on their offer, and now they don't want any part of being a sanctuary city. Something else. It is a disaster. It is still a disaster. The disaster is hitting our major cities. It's hitting us in our own backyards through the allowance to get more fentanyl into the country, which is killing our people even right here in our own backyard. Even here in our own backyard. The situation on the border may not be getting the attention that it once got, but it certainly has not gotten better. It continues to be a problem. 5:30 now, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 76 degrees in Nashville. Complete weather forecast. Latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Former President Trump makes a statement after pleading not guilty to 4 charges related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol.
Also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left.
He called it a persecution of a political opponent and said, quote, "This was never supposed to happen in America." And outside of the courtroom during the hearing, there was a sea of Trump supporters who stayed chanting slogans from a giant speaker set up across the street, all while waving flags and denouncing Attorney General Merrick Garland. And there were also detractors of the former president who are carrying signs that read, quote, "Lock him up." Right now in Middle Tennessee, you can now text for help from police in Rutherford County. The service is especially for the hearing impaired, but also designed for when someone needs help in a domestic violence or human trafficking situation when the assailant is nearby and could otherwise hear when the police called. This way, it's all silent. And a potential fire risk has Hyundai and Kia recalled tens of thousands of vehicles. Alex Stone.
Over 91,000 Hyundai and Kia vehicles are being recalled because damaged electrical components can cause the electric oil pump to overheat, leading to a fire. The Kia recall impacts certain 2023 to 2024 Kia Seltos, Soul, and Sportages. The Hyundai recall involves certain newer model Palisades, Tucson, Sonatas, Elantras, and Konas. Owners are being told to park their vehicles outside, away from any structures, until repairs are completed.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let's talk about DT McCall's. Listen, there are 5 convenient locations in Middle Tennessee, and you can find out where they are. There's one near you, no doubt, just by going to their website, dtmccalls.com. Huge selection of appliances, furniture, just about anything you might want for your home. Looking for a mower for your yard? That's where I got my ZT2 Cub Cadet, and I love it. In fact, if you go through my house, you're going to find a lot of stuff that I found at DT McCall's. People always rave about the couch in the living room, and I got that at DT McCall's. And you know what? Here's the thing. Cabana wife and I went down there. We had very different ideas about what we wanted, but we found something we liked. And the reason you're able to do that at DT McCall's is they have a huge selection. Huge selection. We came together very quickly on something that met both of our needs. They've a company that's been around for more than 100 years old. You don't make it 100 years without having a reputation for treating people right. And whenever possible, DT McCall sells products that were made and manufactured in the state of Tennessee. England furniture, not made in England at all. Made in Tennessee. Lazy Boy items made in Tennessee. They got a mattress line made in Tennessee. Listen, find out about all the things they can do for you and your home simply by going to their website, dtmccalls.com. 37 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and this is the drive for the third day of August where we're cranking through. I got about an hour and a half left in the program. Mac Morey's in the newsroom, and Chris Weber is in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons. We got the all-team. The A-team is in the place and in their chairs. It was, I got to tell you guys, it was sort of a trip down memory lane watching all of the video coming in from Washington today because, I have at times been in those kinds of presidential motorcades and those kinds of scrums. But the thing that really struck me and the thing that really, made me stop and sort of think back was when I saw them pull back from the courthouse. And you see all of the satellite trucks and all of the stuff there in front of the courthouse, and you see the chaos. But what they did was they pushed the people who were there to protest or to support the president, whichever it was, across the street, right there at 3rd and Constitution. And that's where I stood on January 6th, right there. And I watched people walk up Constitution Avenue toward the Capitol, and they were trying to, make their way to the Capitol from the other end, 16 blocks away. It's 16 blocks from the Capitol to the White House. And on the ellipse was where, 16 blocks away, the president was giving his speech. Now, I just have never understood one thing. Now, I saw a lot that day, and it was overwhelming. And I saw the tear gas. I never got into the building or actually even close to where the fighting was. Because I didn't actually, I have an aversion to tear gas, quite frankly, and I didn't want to get a big dose of it. But I didn't think I'd be able to talk if I got in the tear gas, and my job was really to be an observer. But watching it, I'm struck by one thing, and I've continually been struck by one thing. I think the allegation or the suggestion that's going to be made by prosecutors against Donald Trump is that he gave this stem winder, this rousing speech on one end of Pennsylvania Avenue, and that people immediately jumped up and ran down 16 blocks and began to enter the Capitol. And that's just not what happened. I sat there, 3rd and Constitution, and I did a lot of my reporting right there from that location. Long before President Trump ever started to take the stand, take the podium down there on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, there were already thousands and thousands of people on the Capitol lawn, already there. They weren't listening to what the president said. They weren't influenced by what the president said. They were on the Capitol grounds, and then there was very clearly, as you've seen in the videotape, there's no doubt about it, there were confrontation, there were conflicts, there were scuffles, and people went into the building. But to connect Donald Trump's speech to the actions of what happened, the timeline just doesn't add up. It just doesn't. And so I've always remembered that. I was there, and I know, looking back at it later, the people who came to do whatever they did at the Capitol were separate and apart from the things that were going on down at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. They simply were. And I don't believe for one moment that the speech that he delivered was any way related to what happened on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue and Constitution Avenue. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. So, again, it'll be interesting to see how they play this whole thing out. But I just don't think that there's a lot to these allegations against Trump in this particular case. And I think it's pretty thin gruel. I really, really do. Okay. Just a trip down memory lane. But let me just say this. There's some other news I want to get in here today that we haven't had time to get to. This is one of them. If you are a big 2A person, a federal appeals court has blasted the Biden administration's effort to ban a highly popular firearm and potentially turn 20 million owners into felons overnight. In the latest ruling against the overreach by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, judges of the New Orleans-based Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Let's hear it for the mighty Fifth. I'm telling you, they come through force again. Ruled 2-1 that the administration did not follow federal rules in regulating AR-style pistols. The court sent it back to lower court, which would set the ATF regulation aside nationally. It was the latest in a string of court rulings against Biden administration gun control efforts. The 40-page decision handed down that day before yesterday, the court essentially said that the ATF did not give the public a chance to weigh in on its demands that owners of the weapons equipped with pistol braces either remove, destroy, or register them. Several other judges in different circuits have made similar decisions blocking enforcements of the Biden rule. The president has called for a ban on all AR-style weapons. In this case, the ATF moved to regulate those with special braces that could be used as rifle stocks and turn shorter barrel guns into firearms covered under the Regulation Heavy National Firearms Act and a $200 tax. And so the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals 2-1 said, throw that back. For years, ATF allowed unrestricted use of the braces, invented for use by handicapped target shooters, but under Biden moved to ban or regulate them. The White House claimed they are weapons of war, though only 2 mass shootings have involved guns like that are typically used for target shooting and hunting. An estimated 3 million to 20 million are in use, and in making the changes could cost a total of some $2 billion over 10 years. The ATF rule kicked in this year, and the agency gave owners a few months to comply and skip the tax, but just about 250,000 decided to register their guns, a far worse compliance rate than had been expected. Not only did Second Amendment groups call the rule a political move to attack gun owners, but a third judge who joined in the decision said eliminating the braces could make the weapons unsafe. We told you about this the other day. It's been revealed that the Biden administration is refusing to provide funds for hunting and archery courses offered at elementary and secondary schools across the nation. The federal government claimed it was simply abiding by the recently passed Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which amended the Elementary and Secondary Education of 1965 to add the use and training of dangerous weapons to the list of activities, programs, ineligible for funding. The Bipartisan Safer Community was introduced in October of 21, and they threw this out there and made it a part of it. And I'll tell you, a lot of people are upset about it, including Mark Green. Had a story here yesterday, a couple of days back. He's doing everything he can to rectify that and change that from a legislative standpoint. The move was met with criticism from Republicans, Senator John Cornyn, Senator Tom Tillis, who suggested the section of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act dealing with funding programs involving dangerous weapons was being misinterpreted and had been written to only include training for school resource officers. See, the Biden administration hates guns. They just hate guns. Well, I mean, I think Joe Biden hates all guns, with the possible exception, Chris, if you know where I'm headed. He loves shotguns. Do you remember how he sang about shotguns? I'm going to give you half a second because I know you're already digging it up. You've got it there, right? Most people don't know Joe Biden cut a song that had to do with his love of shotguns.
I had 2 shotguns at my home. They're long.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Dance for your dancing and dining pleasure. Joe Biden, buy a shotgun. I love that. I love that so much. I can't tell you how much I love that.
I'd forgotten about that.
That was
Have
awesome.
you ever heard that, Mac Moore?
No,
Have you
I
ever
had-
heard? Apparently, it's auto-tuned. Obviously, very clearly, it's
course, yeah.
auto-tuned. But he did have this. Basically, that came out of a statement. He said, "Look, I told Jill, don't worry about an AR-15. Just get a shotgun, and if there's ever a problem, just fire 2 blasts, and somebody will come." Joe Biden. I mean, the guy's a gift that just keeps on coming, doesn't he? Well, anyway, I don't know how he feels about. I know he loves shotguns in the house, and he wants Jill to have one, but apparently he doesn't want your children getting proper gun training as they do in many schools around the country. That's not going to be allowed anymore. Mark Green says he's going to try to do something about that, and he's going to try to find a legislative fix for that. Whether or not it can make its way through the House, the Senate, and get signed into law by the president, hard to know, but maybe it gets thrown into some must-pass piece of legislation. It'll be fun to find out. In the meantime, I've told Dawn that, I showed her where the shotgun was. If I'm not around, she'll just go out, open up the back door on the cabana, fire a couple of shots, and the help will come, I suppose. By the way, you know what is the real attraction on the cabana these days?
What's that?
Hummingbirds.
Ooh.
I have got more hummingbirds than you can shake a stick at, and I just love watching the hummingbird.
Yeah, I do too. It's fun.
Put up a couple of feeders, and I'll tell. This is true story. Hummingbird feeders are up, but the sugar water has gotten down where it's empty. And a hummingbird flew over to where Dawn was sitting on the cabana and did a little thing in front of her, and then flew over to the hummingbird feeder that was empty, then flew back over, trying to tell her, "Hey,
need a refill
there's no
here, lady.
sugar water in this hummingbird feeder. Get up, woman, and get busy."
That's cool.
Hummingbirds are a little demanding, quite frankly. I'm not sure that I like their attitude, but I love to watch them come and feed. It's really great. 5:50 now on Super Talk 99.7.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
In times of market and economic volatility, gold and silver just might be the safe haven you're looking for. Hey, it's Brian Wilson for Nashville Gold and Coin, and if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place I do business, and it's the place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education, which is what you want. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. I mean, do you have any idea how much those old coins you have laying around might be worth? I brought in a few silver coins I had in a shoebox. They've been in my sock drawer forever. Turned out to be worth about $1,652. I was astonished. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 80 degrees in Nashville and expecting some more showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Former President Trump pled not guilty to 4 charges related to the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Stephen Portnoy was inside of that courtroom.
Once the judge entered, it was all business. She went through the proceeding swiftly. She explained to the former president his rights, particularly that he had the right to remain silent. She asked for a plea, and a not guilty plea was entered on behalf of the former president. She went through all of the particular counts, all the penalties involved, the many years that Trump could face imprisoned if he's found guilty of these counts. She asked if Mr. Trump understood all that, and he said yes.
And after the hearing, the former president gave a brief statement at the Reagan National Airport.
This is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
In other news, 2 U.S. Navy sailors are under arrest and have made their first court appearances after being arrested for allegedly selling China secret military information. Alex Stone reports from Los Angeles.
Federal prosecutors say the 2 U.S. Navy sailors, both born in China and one who only recently became a U.S. citizen, were stealing defense secrets, including troop movements and plans, and selling them to China. Assistant U.S. Attorney General Matthew Olson.
Sensitive military information ended up in the hands of the People's Republic of China.
In both cases, the sailors were allegedly approached by Chinese spies and offered thousands of dollars for delivering classified details about U.S. Navy operations.
Gas prices, they're almost 30 cents higher than they were a month ago. The national average now $3.82 for a gallon of regular. California seeing the highest, now about $5 a gallon. The cheapest in Mississippi at $3.32. Right now in Middle Tennessee, $3.60 for a gallon of gas. That's according to Gas Buddy. And we could see those prices start to come down with the return of cooler temperatures, but then hurricane season can be unpredictable. And some entertainment news. Superstar singer Lizzo finally responding to harassment claims. Jason Nathanson.
On Tuesday, Lizzo and people working with her were accused of sexual harassment, body shaming, and creating a toxic environment on tour. 3 former dancers filed a lawsuit. In a statement on social media, Lizzo calls the allegations false and outrageous, and she says they're coming from former employees who are the ones who are inappropriate and unprofessional. She says, yes, she has high standards and has to make hard decisions, but it's never her intention to make anyone feel uncomfortable, and she would never body shame anyone. The Grammy winner says she's not a victim, but she's also not a villain.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, it's 6 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson. I am your friend and radio buddy on this third day of August, last hour of the 4-hour extravaganza we like to call The Drive. Let's get you home safely and make sure that, that you learn a few things. And I want to mention, before we get deep into this hour, that we're going to have a thing in Hendersonville on the, what is it, the 15th? Is that it? The 15th of August. It's now been moved to the 15th of August. Join me, Dan Mandis. Chris Hand. Have you listened to Chris Hand? He's good. I'm really enjoying what I'm catching of his show in the morning. Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Johnny B., Pamela Furr will all be there for an evening with WTN at J Street Korean Grill and Bar in Hendersonville. It's, somehow, we talk how we have a meet and three. And, a lot of places meet and three or a meet and two, right? That's the big thing in Nashville, right? Well, this is a meet and meet.
And more meat.
Yeah, first of all, we're meeting you. We're shaking your hands. We're going to be rubbing elbows. There may be the taking of selfies. I don't know. And then you get, that's the meat part, and then you get high-quality meat that you grill right there on the table while you're watching our live broadcast. It's fun. Have you ever been to these places where you get your meat and your vegetables and you get them out there on the grill? It's right there on the table, and you're grilling this stuff. And in intention, all of that, it's meat and meat.
And then when you finish eating that meat, you can get some more meat.
That's right. It's all you can eat. That's right. And that's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
You turn me loose in an all-you-can-eat kind of place, and that place is going to lose money on me. That's right. An all-you-can-eat dining experience offering a wide variety of fresh, high-quality meats and premium vegetables. Customers grill it right there at their table as we broadcast live. Each ticket includes an alcoholic beverage of your choice.
Ooh.
They're not going to just give you one. You get to choose it. Because,
bring me the good stuff.
That's right. Use the promo code Chris at checkout for $15 off. So, here's a way to save a little money. To purchase tickets, visit 997WTN.com today. Just go to 997WTN.com today. So to recap, it's a meat and vegetables that you will grill at your table. That just sounds fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
You ever been to like a Benihana's?
Yes.
Where they chop up the stuff right there in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not unlike that. But, you will actually cook your food and meat and grill it right there at the table as you watch a live broadcast. What more could you ask for? It's going to be a fun thing. So, go to 997WTN.com today to get your ticket. Remember, save $15 by using the promo code Chris.
It's all thanks to me.
No, it's Chris Hand.
Oh,
but nonetheless, that's okay too. If you want it to be for you, it's fine. All right, I'm looking forward to this thing. And you had me honestly at all you can eat
meat.
All you can eat.
That's
right.
Pretty strong.
Yeah. And now, what I'm curious about is, will I be broadcasting with all my gear there while trying to also cook my meat and eat?
Ooh. Yeah, you may have to get a proxy to do your grilling.
As it turns out, I have one of those.
Mm-hmm.
His Cabana wife will be my proxy. She will cook my meat and bring it to me.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it's what being married is all about, my friend. All right, couple of things as we move into the next hour. There was, besides all this Donald Trump stuff that happened today, if you're just joining us, I'll give you the quick rundown. Donald Trump showed up in D.C., pleaded not guilty to 4 charges that related to the January 6th investigation that had been leveled against him by Jack Smith, the special prosecutor. And he spoke to reporters briefly and then got on his plane and went back. And an hour later, he was back in New Jersey. So, that was his day. And look, he pleaded not guilty. I think this is a very weak case. We've been all over this. I'll move on. Because there's other stuff that happened today. You remember we told you that Devin Archer.
They are finding.
Oh, excuse me. Devin Archer was having a conversation with the folks up on the Hill on Monday, and today they released the transcript of those conversations. And I have a lot of stuff here from it. It's 138 pages. It's not uncomplicated stuff. It's rather complicated stuff. And you have to go through there and decide, well, what's the news out of all this? If you want to make a look at it, take a look at it and make your decision, why don't you just go to yourfarb.com. At the very top of the page, a link that will take you directly to yourfarb.com, and there's a link there will take you to the Devin Archer transcript, so you can read it for yourself if you're so interested. Again, that's at yourfarb.com. Learn more about Your Farb at 997wtn.com. 5 takeaways. This is from thehill.com, from Devin Archer's interview with House Oversight. The House Oversight Committee on Thursday released the transcript of Devin Archer's closed-door testimony offering insight into the business dealings of the former business associate Hunter Biden and an eye into the GOP investigation of the Biden family. Set for a transcribed interview before the Oversight panel on Monday, after which lawmakers on each side of the aisle offered conflicting interpretations of testimony. The clashing narratives continued on Thursday, with Republicans on the committee saying the testimony from Archer, who they view as a key witness in their probe, confirmed several critical pieces of information with regard to the investigation of the Biden's influence peddling schemes. Top Democrats on the panel said the interview failed to produce any evidence of wrongdoing by the President Biden. According to the transcript, Archer testified that Hunter Biden put his father, then the vice president, on speakerphone during some meetings with associates, and the interview covered the Biden ban at length. The Biden brand. That's not easy to say. But Archer said he was not aware of President Biden committing any wrongdoing. Archer says he was not aware of any wrongdoing. However, he did say that that it was about showing the Biden brand, having conversations, and the Biden brand sent the message to the people who wanted to do business with Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and all these people that, that we had juice, that we had access to the vice president. Let's see what else. He did say he was unaware of any bribes directly to Biden, but he might not have known about it. Archer described frequent calls between the Bidens, sometimes put his father, then Vice President Biden, on speakerphone during meetings. Archer recalled maybe 20 times that Hunter Biden made it apparent to investors or other business contacts that he spoke to his dad, and he said he had occasionally placed his father on speakerphone. Archer described the conversations he heard as generally about the weather, what's it like in Norway or Paris or wherever they were. And Archer described in great detail during this transcript the Biden brand. What is it? Archer said the family's brand provided value to Burisma. At one point in his testimony, he said he did not consider the brand to be Joe directly, but noted that the then vice president brought the most value to the brand. Archer said he thought Burisma would have gone out of business if the brand had not been out there working on its behalf, but that's different than Joe Biden's actions. The very fact the Biden brand was the name, the family name, and getting dad on the phone, showing the business partners who, here you have Hunter Biden and his business partners asking these people to spend millions of dollars. And the only thing that he could show was this one trick where he would call dad and put him on speaker. But what that one trick showed them was, I have access. This is the vice president of the most powerful country in the world, and I have access to them. If you want to come to the father, you got to come through me. You want to come for the big guy? I'm his man. Pay me, And I make sure that your issues get brought before the big guy and get due consideration by the Obama folks. So there is that. Here's another story, this one from Fox News, from this transcript. Devon Archer torpedoes Biden camp's defense of controversial dinner with a Burisma executive. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram is he doing some good work. Hunter Biden's ex-business partner confirmed during his recent closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee that then Vice President Biden was at the infamous spring 2015 dinner with son Hunter's foreign business associates, despite the Biden campaign repeatedly saying that Biden was never there. Devon Archer told investigators that the elder Biden had dinner with him and several friends, including Vadim P. from Burisma. When Biden arrived, Archer said Biden shook everybody's hand and joined their conversation. In 2020, the New York Post reported an explosive story about Hunter Biden introducing his then vice president father to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm, Burisma, where Hunter had served on the board and collected more than $50,000 a month. The story set off a firestorm and rejection from Biden's closest aides, Andrew Bates, who now is a White House spokesperson, but at the time worked on the communication team of the Biden 2020 campaign. He roundly denied that the meeting ever occurred. Well, it did occur. Cafe Milano in Washington, D.C., right there in Georgetown. In that same Politico article, which centered around Biden's campaign punching back, other top Biden advisors flatly rejected. I mean, they denied. Devon Archer says, I was there, baby. I saw it with my own eyes. Yeah. So there's the latest news about Devon Archer. Late this there's a lot more information coming in about the Donald Trump thing and this case that he now faces regards to January 6th. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, has blasted the judge overseeing former President Trump's case involving his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election for being relentlessly hostile to the former president. Basically, Ted Cruz is saying this judge has got it in for Trump. Cruz said on his podcast, The Verdict with Ted Cruz, that U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan has a reputation for being far left, even by D.C. court standards. He said Chutkan has set aside multiple federal death penalty cases and pointed to her strong sentence for January 6th cases that were longer than what prosecutors had recommended. So in terms of the judge, we can anticipate a judge who's going to be relentlessly hostile to Donald Trump, who's going to bend over backwards for the Biden Department of Justice, and who's going to make a ruling after ruling after ruling against Trump. Cruz did vote for Chutkan's confirmation in 2014 when she was confirmed unanimously by the Senate after being nominated by former President Obama. He said if the case goes to trial in Washington, D.C., there is an exceptionally high chance the jury will vote to convict him because D.C. leans Democrat. I agree with that 1,000%. They are not Donald Trump supporters. The likelihood that a D.C. jury will vote to convict Donald Trump is exceptionally high, and the facts don't matter. The law don't matter. They hate him. That's a big part of the reason why the Biden DOJ wanted to bring the case in D.C., which means with a far-left judge and a far-left jury, there is a very real possibility that Donald Trump ends up being convicted. And I think then they go to appeal. They might even get an expedited appeal by the Supreme Court. But, we are in for a roller coaster ride on this one. Unless they can convince the case to change the judge and change the location on a change of venue request, which they no doubt will make. But I don't recall ever seeing that approved in a D.C. court. I can't remember one case. So we'll watch it. 20 minutes now, past the hour, 6 o'clock. Genesis Diamonds is opening up the vault with their largest GIA diamond event ever. Starting Saturday for a limited time, all Genesis GIA diamond engagement rings will be marked down 20%. Now, that's 20% below Genesis's already unbeatable price. This means that you can buy like a dealer buys, with deep discounts on over $10 million in stunning diamond rings. These remarkable savings are on every GIA diamond engagement ring from a half carat to 20 carats, all shapes, rounds, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts, ovals, pairs, shapes, whatever you want. Remember, all Genesis diamonds are hand-picked. They come straight from the diamond cutters and are graded by the GIA, the most prestigious gem lab in the world. At Genesis, you know their everyday prices are unbeatable. But for this event, they're taking value to a whole different level with an additional 20% savings. So don't miss this chance to save like never before on that exquisite diamond ring. Buy like a dealer buys. Starting Saturday for a limited time, exclusive at Genesis Diamonds. Limit 1 per customer, please. 2 locations, Green Hill and Cool Springs. See store for details. All right, it is 26 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The time is wasting. We're getting down to the last minutes of the show before we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one. I've been talking about LPRs, and you know that there was a test of LPRs, license plate readers, in Nashville, Tennessee. And the council said, we'll give you 6 months to decide whether or not it works or not. Police have had 6 months of it, and they love it. They think it's great. Those who have actually have to prosecute cases, the assistant district attorney came out and said, yeah, we think it's pretty good. They are fixed and mobile cameras that are used to locate vehicles wanted by law enforcement, but only those, the only cases that it alerts on and sends a notification to police is a license plate that's connected to a criminal case. You have to have a criminal case and say there's a criminal warrant for this individual, and then it will start searching for that number. And so I think it seems like it's a pretty good deal. I get in trouble for this because people think, well, you have no respect for privacy. No, I have a realistic understanding of what privacy is allowed in a public place because I've read the law. And I'd like to say that you have a right to privacy when you're in public, but you don't. And you have no right, no expectation of privacy once you leave your home. That's where you have privacy. And these license plate readers catch bad guys and take them off the street. And I'm in favor of that. And I thought most Republicans were law and order. They want bad guys off the street. And so this is working in that regard. But there are those who think it should not be continued. The Community Oversight Board and others have simply said, we think it's a bad idea. So here's the latest. After years of debate and a 6-month pilot program, Metro Council is expected to decide the future of license plate readers on Tuesday, August 15th, the last meeting of this term. Over the course of this 6 months, there have been an extraordinary amount of data that is publicly accessible, said Public Health and Safety Committee Chair Jeff Syracuse. We really need to be more thoughtful about how we proceed. During their Tuesday, August 1st meeting, Syracuse's committee did not take any action on whether to continue the use of LPR cameras in Davidson County. He said the meeting was an opportunity for the key community groups to make their case for and against the cameras. So they took a bunch of input, but they're going to make a final decision on the 15th of August. And I guess then after that, that will be the last meeting of their term. The Metro Nashville Police Department presented Tuesday's meeting information suggesting that the cameras led to 112 arrests. They recovered 87 vehicles. And during the course of the 6 months, 71 million license plates were scanned. However, while Metro Police are celebrating those figures, a lot of folks are just concerned about it. One way or the other, I hope they keep the license plates readers. I know my friends on the police department believe it's an invaluable law enforcement tool that keeps bad guys off the street, and that's what they like. They want to keep bad people off the street. I have reason to believe that some of the people who are standing in the way and suggesting this is not good technology and should not be used, that the main reason that they have an objection is they don't have any interest in keeping bad people off the street. And anybody who suggests, by the way, that they put these things in minority areas just because they wanted to go after minorities, and that hasn't been made. That allegation has not been made explicitly, but indirectly. I would simply say they put the cameras in the place where you had the highest crime rates. Now, seems like if you care about getting your community safe and rid of crime, that you would welcome a tool that is designed to reduce crime in your neighborhood. But I guess I'm just old-fashioned. I guess I'm just wrong. Some people, I don't think, really want to have people arrested, bad people arrested in their neighborhood. It's 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, don't wait for a problem to pop up with your heat or air conditioning this time of year. Be proactive, keep your unit in top shape. Whether you need annual maintenance, repair, or a replacement of your heating and air conditioning system, call the folks I trust, Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. Now listen, I'm a member of the Beehive Club. For as little as $99, you'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Just a short distance to go before we hang it up for this Thursday and hand it over to Mark Levin. And I tell you, you'll enjoy that, I know. I'm pulling up some last-minute stories so that I want to make sure. You know, I always like to go through because, you know, when I start the show, some things are still percolating, and so late in the show, I like to make sure I haven't missed anything. So, you know, I want to bring you the very latest. Here's a thing, and I cannot get an answer. Cabana wife is on holiday. She's, I don't know, best I can tell, she's on a boat in Lake Michigan somewhere today.
Wow.
I mean, I get pictures, and I keep asking questions. And it's the most maddening thing, don't you think, when you send to your loved one, your dear spouse, a question, and then they send you something but never look at the question and never answer your question.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so then I repeat the question, and again, I don't have any answer.
Well, she's busy having a good time.
Well, I know, but I mean, I wanted an answer to a question because I can't remember if I've been to this place or not. I think I have. Because, and this is important because Southern Living magazine has found 2, Southern Living. I mean, that's a pretty, when Southern Living says this is a good place, you can pretty much put your, you can put your money on it.
Mm.
Southern Living has found 2 legendary steakhouse experiences right here in Nashville. Well, we're in the South, so, they would know. Number 1, and this is what I was asking Cabana Wife. I think I've been there, but I can't remember. Sperry's Restaurant in Belmead. Most important thing is it was named 5th most legendary steakhouse on their list.
Wow.
Opened in 1974 by brothers Houston and Dick Thomas, named for their great-grandfather Burton W. Sperry. The restaurant is now run by Houston's son Al and his wife Trish. So they say, good place to go for a steak. The steaks are sensational, but the restaurant is also known for its legendary salad bar, rumored to be the first in Nashville, with its homemade dressings like Green Goddess, French Thousand Islands, old-fashioned blue cheese. If you want to dine like royalty, this is the place. Apparently, Prince William once ate there. And here, I would have loved to have been in on this dinner. I mean, think about this. In the early 2000s, the magazine said, Brad Paisley once took John Fogerty and Mick Jagger there to eat.
Wow.
Now, would that have been a table to sit at? I would have killed to just sit in the background and listen. This, according to the Tennessean. The second one is Jimmy Kelly's Steakhouse on Louise Avenue. Founded in 1934. The restaurant opened amid the Great Depression, just 1 year removed from the repeal of Prohibition. John Kelly, back in the day, made a promise to himself and his diners, the restaurant says on its website. Simply put, he would serve a great steak, a generous portion of whiskey, and ensure the service was always attentive. I mean, what else do you really want?
That's all you need right there.
You want a good steak. You want to have, a nice pour of something that, tickles your fancy. According to Southern Living, the third generations of Kellys are still making good on that promise. Housed in a grand Southern mansion, you'll be wowed by the restaurant's exterior and continue to be awed by the rich ruby and gold interiors. Steaks there are hand-cut by an in-house butcher and aged for a minimum of 28 days.
Ooh.
I don't know. Do you think aging, everybody says that makes them more tender.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds good.
I don't know, because, I don't know, but I like my steak fresh.
Well, it's good fresh, too.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll need to do some study on that. Now, of course, not listed on the Southern Living list, of course, is another place where you can get a really amazing steak. And that's out at my pool. And Chris, I think you can back me up.
I will attest to that, yes.
I have a special thing that I do to steaks.
Secret?
I'll tell you what the biggest secret is. There's a lot of things that go into my marinade.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really, honestly, I make a really great steak. I think it's a pretty good steak.
It is.
But the marinade, the basic element of the marinade that just really makes it kick, believe it or not, it's Emerald's steak rub. I mean, Emerald's got a steak rub. Now, if you can find it, it's hard to find, and I like that one pretty well. And so put that on there. But then there's a whole lot of other things. There's a little bourbon that goes in there. There's a little honey that goes in there. There's a little barbecue sauce that goes in there. There's a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce that goes in there. And then the other. So I'm telling you, I'd like to put one of my steaks up against one of these others. What do you say?
See how you fare.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much time we got here. I wasn't going to go here, but because people think I'm crazy when I do this, but there is more UFO news, more UAP news, and let's finish out with that. So because I think that the truth is out there. Recent claims by a whistleblower that the U.S. government has been aware of non-human activity since the 1930s including retrieving an unidentified aerial phenomenon from Magneta, Italy, with the help of the Vatican, has put increasing pressure on the Holy See to disclose what it knows about the subject, according to Newsweek. Whistleblower David Grush, he just testified on Capitol Hill, a U.S. Air Force veteran who previously worked at the National Reconnaissance Office on UFOs, was among 3 people who recently testified to the House Oversight Committee about the allegations. Grush, who resigned from his position in April, said the government had retrieved several non-human origin technical vehicles. Okay, non-human origin technical vehicles, so unmanned vehicles. But then they say some of which contain dead pilots. Okay, they're saying non-human. They didn't come from somebody on this earth, and they were technical vehicles, and there were 2 dead pilots. He said the Italian government had recovered a UFO in the 1930s and moved it to a secure airbase. Until then, Pope Pius VII had it back-channeled knowledge of the UFO to the U.S., which ended up scooping it up from them, according to Newsweek. Grush said the Catholic Church certainly knew about the existence of alien life. However, the Department of Defense and NASA have publicly stated that they have no evidence of alien life or of a government program to reverse engineer alien materials, something Grush says he knows exists on some level. Russ Coldhart, one of the journalists who interviewed Grush before the congressional hearings, said the other unnamed sources had confirmed the story to him and that the silence of the Vatican could be a sign that the claim is true. He stressed that 390 years ago, it was the Vatican that tried Galileo as a heretic for arguing that the earth wasn't at the center of the universe, and in nearly 400 years, I would have to say the Vatican has actually shown quite credible openness to scientists, pointing out the Holy See hosted a conference on astrobiology in 2009. Coulthard said he had spoken to someone who had been granted access to the Vatican's archives and suggested that documents providing evidence for Grush's claims may be found there by the very few with permission to enter. So who has permission to enter? What does the Vatican know? I don't know. Does this sound plausible to you?
Sounds like a movie that would have, Tom Hanks or Nicolas Cage in it or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's exactly what it sounds like. You are so right. And I don't have time to get through all of this story, but I'll give you what we have. And this sounds like something different to me. Pilots, according to The Drive. Now, The Drive, there's a website called The Drive, and they're very good. They write about military things, and they have a pretty good reputation of being on the cutting edge of stuff. This is The Drive. Pilots are seeing some very strange things in Arizona's military training ranges. Encounters with small unidentified objects, sometimes in swarm-like groups as many as 8. Sightings of other objects, including some characterized as drones, flying at altitudes of up to 36,000 feet, or as fast as Mach 0.75. Another apparent small drone apparently hitting the canopy of an F-16 Viper, causing damage. These incidents and many more all occurred in various military air combat training ranges in Arizona since January of 2020. The events are described in reports from the Federal Aviation Administration, filed over roughly a 3-year period. Overall, the data points to what is often characterized as drones, but many of them are actually unidentified objects as well. What do appear to be drones are uncrewed aerial systems, UASs, intruded into these restricted warning areas with alarming regularity. Okay, here's what I think this is. We are in the process now of developing a 5th-generation fighter, and 6th-generation fighters are probably in the works as well. And one of the things that's going to happen, I guess the F-35 is a 5th, and now we're talking 6th. When you take a 5th-generation fighter and you put it up against a 4th-generation fighter, it's not a fair fight. The F-22, 5th generation. The F-16, 4th generation. F-35, 5th generation. F-14, for example, would be 4th generation. The 6th generation is supposed to be in development, and what that is supposed to be is a very low observable aircraft that is piloted, which is accompanied by a swarm of other small aircraft that are not piloted. And artificial intelligence is involved, and the idea of these unpiloted drones that would accompany, when a jet takes off, it's got its own little fleet of drones that stay right there with it and go out and do the dirty work, and you stay back in the sixth-generation fighter and just sort of observe it all, and a lot of it's done on automatic pilot or with input from the pilot that's way back there behind the drones. I think that what some of these guys are finding is that they're being tested. I think some of this stuff, but I don't think that it's the same kind of stuff that David Fravor saw. I don't think it's the same kind of stuff that Grush is talking about. I think this is actually something that we are developing. They call them drones. They fly at about 3/4 of Mach, which would be something that would be within the realm of what we could do. I think they're being tested by our own technology in some cases. 50 minutes now, past the hour, 6 o'clock. All right, we want to welcome Chris Weber to the Wellness Institute family. I've been talking about the Wellness Institute for some time now, but now, Chris, you're going to be adding to the conversation. You've had a chance to go down and be a part of what they do there and take a look at the place. Really, it's quite an amazing facility they have there in Mount Juliet.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, and so happy to have you on board, also speaking on behalf of the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Now, you may have tried the non-surgical spinal decompression. If you haven't ever tried that, you have pain in your arms, your legs, your back, your neck, this could be a good option for you. Why don't you reach out and set an appointment? The phone call starts with this number, 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009. Make an appointment, go in and see them, and here's the deal. If you're a new patient, your 2023 special is that your first consult is only $23. You'll get an exam, a consultation, x-rays. If you have an MRI, you can bring that in. Dr. Kevin Mitchell will go over your condition and get you started. Here is the number again, 615-246-5009. They have another thing out there. It's called a KT machine. It's like spinal decompression, but aimed at your knee. It gently elongates the knee and joint and allows the meniscus or the cartilage to receive the healing treatment without the need for surgery or painkillers. Learn more about all the things they can do for you at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Just go to the website, painisbad.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.